Hey, what is up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my review for SpongeBob SquarePants Season 2, Episode 8. And I know it's been a little while since I've done a review for SpongeBob SquarePants. It's been about, I'd say, it's been May, so May, June, July, August. It's been about 5 months. And it's been about 5 months. And today's today's September. It's actually been exactly 5 months because today's September 4th. But I'm here to give you guys one now. I want to get back to doing SpongeBob reviews a lot more frequently than I was. So I'm here to give you to you guys now. So this episode is called, I have it on my phone, Imitation Krabs, or Robo Krabs. I guess they've changed the title recently. I think on the DVD I have, it's called Robo Krabs. But I don't really feel like looking it up. But I guess it's both the same episode. Maybe they changed it. I'm not exactly sure why they changed it, but they did. And this episode originally aired on December 28th, 2000. And this is still kind of going. It's going through those weird times when no, I guess it's going into a more consistent order, because I remember this is the season where the last few episodes I reviewed came out earlier than the season premiere. So really kind of weird how that season was structured in the beginning. But I'm here to give you guys my review of this episode, and that's what I came here to do. The episode starts off. We hear the French narrator, and they're outside the Krusty Krab, and he's talking about the Krusty Krab and the scenery, but mainly the one thing he talks about is the secret formula. You know, how nobody else can know this formula, and no one else is really smart enough to know this formula. It's only the people that are smart enough and intelligent enough to know it. And this was supposed to be a comedy bit here, because then we see SpongeBob, pop up, and he's trying to balance his spatula on his on his nose, and it was supposed to be funny because SpongeBob's one of the employees at the Krusty Krab, so it kind of worked out, I thought. So Mr. Krabs tells him not to quit goofing around and because he's scaring away his money. Then outside, and then the narrator talks about that if there's always a secret formula, there's always someone that's willing to steal it. And then this cues in Plankton, and he disguised himself like I guess like a game show host, because he's gonna use that as a disguise to fake SpongeBob into revealing the formula to him. So and he doesn't just disguise himself as a game show host. He disguises himself as a game show host with a mustache. The mustache was the final touch, apparently, according to him. So he goes in there. He goes up to SpongeBob and he talks like he's a game show host. And he tells SpongeBob that he's won $1 million. And SpongeBob's really excited about it. And he says all he has to do is answer one question. And he asks him what the Krabby Patty secret formula is. And SpongeBob takes that breath like he's going to tell him what it is. They really do a good job of building up, making you think he's actually going to reveal the secret formula. And Plankton is getting really excited about it. And then SpongeBob pretty much says he's not going to reveal it. He says it like word for word, like as if it's written in the rules of the Krusty Krab booklet. So then Plankton pops out of the teeth, over the mouth of the robot he was using, and he was like, and he threatens SpongeBob. He goes like literally right up to his eye to hand over the formula or else. And then Mr. Krabs pops up, and him and Plankton do the typical thing that two enemies do to each other when they see each other. You know, they keep saying each other's names. He's like, Plankton, and Plankton was like, Krabs. And this goes back and forth, and then SpongeBob just randomly says his name, SpongeBob, which was funny. So Mr. Krabs just gets rid of Plankton. He uses him as a spitball and just shoots him through and just spits him right out of a straw, which is like the spitball, and sends him right back to the chum bucket. And Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob that he has to keep a close eye out for Plankton, because he's always trying to, find clever ways to steal his formula. And SpongeBob, this is the exact quote, says, "Don't worry, Mr. Krabs, as long as these pants are square and this spongy's Bob." And then he raises his hands up and says, "I will not let you down." And then I guess he lifted Mr. Krabs up. So then Mr. Krabs says, "SpongeBob, would you let me down?" And I thought that was a pretty funny scene because it was a nice joke. It was kind of a cheesy joke, but it wasn't. But it was a creative joke. I thought it was pretty funny. So then later on, one of the customers is talking about how good the Krabby Patties are, and he says that he wonders what's in that secret formula. So then SpongeBob freaks out. He says, "Code 12, Code 12," and he thinks pretty much that this is Plankton in disguise again. So he rips off the guy's head, and we find out that it was somebody in disguise, but it was not Plankton. Apparently this guy bought like this fake head at the Head and Handsome clinic, and he was all upset because he didn't think anybody was going to notice, so he leaves crying. And Mr. Krabs gets upset that that SpongeBob just scared off one of his customers. And SpongeBob apologizes, saying that he was just trying to protect the secret formula. So Mr. Krabs says, "Just remember the important rule." And SpongeBob says, "No free napkins," because Mr. Krabs is such a cheapskate and loves money, apparently he charges you for napkins. And he's like, "No, the other most important rule regarding the secret formula." And I'm mentioning this because this is going to get important later on in the episode. And SpongeBob says, "Only discuss the formula with Mr. Krabs." And Mr. Krabs says, "As long as you do that, the formula is safe." Well, that wasn't necessarily the case, because that has to do with the title of this video, of this episode. So then Squidward says, "I always thought what you could do today, what you could put off to... No, I always thought, why would you do today what you could put off to tomorrow?" And Mr. Krabs doesn't like this comment, so he's like, "What is today but yesterday's tomorrow?" And Squidward's like, "Huh?" So Mr. Krabs wants pretty much Squidward to take inventory of everything. They go like, they go like back to where all the buns, the patties, and the all the stuff is to make the Krabby Patties all. And Squidward's doing this, and when Mr. Krabs closes the door, we see a robot Krabs pop up behind him. And he calls Squidward's name. And we see that it's Plankton had designed a robot disguising himself as Mr. Krabs. And Squidward is catching on to him. He realizes that this isn't Mr. Krabs. By the way, when I mentioned that, so you could see why that quote where SpongeBob says, "Only discuss the formula with Mr. Krabs," which was actually pretty smart of Plankton, because if he disguises himself as Mr. Krabs, people will SpongeBob will think that it is him, and technically he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. So I actually thought this was one of Plankton's smartest schemes he did. So yeah, but Squidward pretty much gets on, pretty much knows that this isn't Mr. Krabs, because he ain't no fool. And then Mr. Krabs tells Plankton disguises Mr. Krabs. I'm just gonna call him Robo Krabs. Decides, gives Squidward the rest of the day off, and Squidward's like, and then Squidward, obviously because he said that, gets excited, and he's like, "Whatever you say, Mr. Krabs." He knows it's not Mr. Krabs, but the fact that he's gonna give him the day off, and Squidward's one of those people that doesn't really like his job, obviously goes along with this. So he takes off. SpongeBob comes in, and he's wondering what's up with Mr. Krabs. Why he's made of metal and he's so cold. And Robo Krabs lies by saying That's just my metal suit. I use it to protect the formula. And then we hear Mr. Krabs calling SpongeBob's name, and Robo Krabs or Plankton realizes that if Mr. Krabs sees him, he's gonna realize that this is Plankton immediately. So he distracts SpongeBob and hides and disguises himself as a toaster. And Mr. Krabs comes in and asks where Squidward is, and SpongeBob tells him that he gave him the rest of the day off. And Mr. Krabs gets angry about this. He's like, I don't know the meaning of them horrible words. So he tells SpongeBob to take out the garbage because it's starting to give him a rash. And what I first thought was, I don't think it was the garbage giving him a rash. I think it was the fact that, SpongeBob just told Mr. Krabs that he gave Squidward the day off when he didn't. And then SpongeBob goes to take out the trash. Robo Krabs pops up behind him, and he uses heat vision to destroy the trash. And Robo Krabs pretty much wants SpongeBob to tell him the secret formula. Mr. Krabs comes in again, so Robo Krabs has to hide. And Mr. Krabs comes in, and he orders SpongeBob to go back to work, doing his typical job in the kitchen. He's saying that he's not paying him to stand around. And then SpongeBob's like, but I thought you wanted to ask me a question. And Mr. Krabs is like, yes, why are you working harder? And he's like, and SpongeBob says, I don't know, Mr. Krabs. I just don't know. So then SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs leave. Robo Krabs was hiding behind one of the beams in the storage room. And Plankton realizes that he's never going to get the formula with Mr. Krabs constantly popping in and checking on SpongeBob. So he needs to find a way to distract Mr. Krabs. So he pulls out a penny, and his exact words were, it looks like an ordinary penny, because it is an ordinary penny. And he says, that he's been saving it apparently for a rainy day too. I don't know exactly what you would be able to get with a penny on a rainy day, but that's what he says. So obviously, because Mr. Krabs loves money, he's going to go gaga over this. So he rolls the penny outside Robo Krabs' nose. And Mr. Krabs hears it. He gets fascinated by it. He wants that penny. And Mr. Krabs runs off after the penny, runs completely out of the Krusty Krab. Apparently this penny was so important to him, but I guess Mr. Krabs likes money. It fits his character. So then we see Robo Krabs hiding behind the Krusty Krab sign, which is like this thin, and Robo Krabs is like this big. I don't know how he was able to hide so well, but I guess. And he says that nothing stands between him and that formula now. He just starts evil laughing. He cuts up the sign falls on him, which was funny. So then we see SpongeBob. He's washing the floor of the Krusty Krab, and Robo Krabs comes in, and Robo Krabs wants SpongeBob to tell him about the secret formula. A microphone pops out. There's like a little opening, I guess, to the robot, and SpongeBob realizes it is like, isn't that a microphone? And he's like, oh yeah, right, sorry, and he pulls it back in. So he says, so he wants him to tell him the formula, but I guess there's like all these traditions they have to do before they can actually sit down and talk about the secret formula. SpongeBob says that they have to do the secret handshake, and because Plankton doesn't know any of these traditions, this is like gonna this is going to hurt Plankton, but they have to do the secret handshake, and the secret handshake is they have to stand on one foot and pledge the national anthem of the Bikini Bottom while balancing a glass of chocolate milk on their heads. And there's not just that, there's more traditions. We didn't even see half of them, but apparently all these traditions take 6.5 hours. That's insane. One of them, Robo Krabs, has to launch himself out of a cannon, and onto like a table, and they have to eat spaghetti and do like a spaghetti song ritual, and Robo Krabs is asking formula time, and SpongeBob says that And SpongeBob says, "No, sorry, no can do, Mr. Krabs." And then Robo Krabs is like, "What?" And they really kind of highlight how pissed he is, because Robo Krabs' eyes catch on fire, and Plankton gets upset about this. He's like, "But we did everything you said. I followed all the rules. I even ate 100 black licorice through a straw." And Robo Krabs wants to know why he won't reveal him the formula. And SpongeBob says, "It's your rule. Never speak the formula. You told me to keep it in this bottle." And I think this was the first episode where we found out that the formula was actually kept inside a bottle, because before this episode, they didn't really mention like that the formula was written down or anything, because before, when Plankton was controlling SpongeBob in season 1, they just had him go get the Krabby Patty, where he was going to bring it in so that way they would reveal the formula. And I don't think there was any other time that Plankton really went after the formula but that episode. So it was interesting that they brought this up, because now this becomes this is how they usually present the formula, where it's hidden inside a bottle, which I thought was pretty interesting. So yeah, they do a good job building up to this as well, where Robo Krabs is reaching for the formula, and right when he gets his hands on it, the real Mr. Krabs comes in, and everybody gasps, even the penny, because the penny rolled in as well. That's why Mr. Krabs came in, gasped as well, which was funny. And Mr. Krabs is like, "I don't believe it, SpongeBob. Giving away my formula to this imposter." And Robo Krabs and Mr. Krabs get into an argument about who the real Mr. Krabs is. And, Robo Krabs accuses Mr. Krabs of being a robot. And then Mr. Krabs says, "Well, if I was a robot, which I'm not, at least I'm well put together, not some rusted up pile of junk." And then SpongeBob loses it. He tells everyone to quiet. And he has like a tartar sauce like that can just shoot right out of a hose. And SpongeBob says, so SpongeBob threatens both Mr. Krabses, and says that, until I know who the real Mr. Krabs is, nobody moves and nobody gets hurt. So he offers a quiz show that he's going to ask him questions that only the real Mr. Krabs can answer. And they both agree to it. And obviously Robo Krabs looks worried because he knows he's probably not going to be able to answer any of these questions. So then he starts asking. He asks how much a Krabby Patty... he asks what time the Krusty Krab opens, and Robo Krabs immediately answers and says 9 o'clock a.m. or something like that. It was questions like that. What time the Krusty Krab opens. What time, how much a Krabby Patty cost on Wednesdays. And Robo Krabs is able to answer all these questions immediately, because I think what happens is, since Plankton has been chasing after the secret formula so long, he probably knows all the ins and outs of the Krusty Krab. He knows pretty much everything that there is to know about it. So this is Mr. Krabs has one final chance to answer a question, and SpongeBob asks a question that, if we're discussing the secret formula, like it's a complicated question that nobody would know, but I think it's because SpongeBob's such a great employee, and he reads probably the handbook cover to cover, word for word, he knows all the answers to these questions. So Mr. Krabs obviously doesn't know. So he gets shot with a tartar sauce, and he gets thrown right into like a pile of food like that. It's gonna like contain fish and chips, and SpongeBob drives him away, and he assumes that this is the imitation Krabs. But then SpongeBob walks in, apologizes to Robo Krabs. No, he says that he knew it was him all along, Mr. Krabs. He gives him the formula. Robo Krabs starts evil laughing because he realizes that he's won, and he's about to get to the secret formula. But then we see the penny, and SpongeBob's like, "Don't forget your lucky penny," and he puts the penny in the coin slot that says that causes Robo Krabs to self-destruct. And we hear Plankton, you know, the computer tells him that the self-destruct corn sled has been activated, and Plankton realizes that's corn-operated self-destruct, not one of my better ideas. I don't know why he would install that, but obviously they needed some way for Plankton to fail, and I guess this was this way, because, spoiler alert in all these episodes, Plankton never succeeds to get the secret formula. He always comes really close, but then it doesn't happen. I think what happened, too, is, so that was a weird thing. I think what also happened, too, was I guess Plankton was just going to destroy this robot when he was done, because he wouldn't have any use for it afterwards. Who knows? So Plankton runs into the chum bucket explodes, and of course the thing that doesn't get destroyed is the formula. It's like indestructible. So SpongeBob realizes he messed up and realizes that was Plankton. He's like, oh. So then we hear Mr. Krabs in trouble, so SpongeBob goes after him, and we see a hand. I guess it was supposed to be like a human eating the fish and chips. And SpongeBob pushes Mr. Krabs back to the Krusty Krab. I thought that was actually a pretty funny scene. And he apologizes for Mr. Krabs for thinking he was a phony. Mr. Krabs accepts his apology. And he tells SpongeBob that that penny is coming out of his paycheck. They laugh, and SpongeBob's like, really? Because that's ridiculous that he's going to take a penny out of his paycheck. It's ridiculous. And then the episode goes off the air. And that was the end. And overall, I thought this was actually a really good episode. I thought this I thought they made a lot of nice jokes that were funny to laugh at. I thought the story was good with Plankton disguising himself as Mr. Krabs, and it was really clever. And Plankton did everything. Well, he didn't do everything right, but he did everything right to get that formula. He distracted Mr. Krabs. And he disguised himself as Mr. Krabs so SpongeBob would reveal the formula. The only thing that messed him up was that he made the corn-operated self-destruct thing that ended up being his downfall at the end. So that ended up, sucking for him. And of course, and they did build up to a lot of good stuff. And overall, I just thought it was a pretty good, well-entertaining episode. I'm not exactly sure how the critics have reviewed this episode because I can't really look that up. But I thought this was a pretty well done episode. If I had to rate it, I thought I'd rate it probably as an 8 out of 10. I thought this was really good. And I do gotta say too, maybe when watching this SpongeBob episode back, you really forget how shitty the SpongeBob episodes grow to become later on in life, and especially nowadays. They're shit now, so maybe that's why I'm ranking this episode so high, but I still thought it was really good. It had a nice story, and it wasn't anything complicated. It was pretty simple, and I thought they had some nice jokes in here, and it was pretty entertaining. But that's pretty much the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so that way people will watch it. Make sure you guys also check out my past SpongeBob SquarePants reviews down in the description box below. I have a playlist that has every one of them I've done so far. And make sure you guys also subscribe to this YouTube channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video, you guys will get the notification for it. And make sure you guys do the same for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that channel and click on the bell so that way every time you guys will get the notifications every time I upload a video on that channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.